Jack Pirtle, and I'm owner-operator of P7 Dairy.
Tell me a little bit about how your family came to be here in Roswell, New Mexico.
My granddad was born in the house that my parents still live in 1926. So his dad, I think, came here from Oklahoma, started farming in the early 1920s. My granddad got 120, 150 acres that he started on, and he had 3 boys. And then the 3 boys worked on the farm, which would have been my dad and his 2 brothers. They took the 150 acres that they had and turned it into 1,500. And then my dad had 3 sons and a daughter, and my uncle had 2 sons and a daughter. And we're all involved in the daily operations now on the farm and the dairy. Probably when I was 17, 18 years old, we started buying and acquiring, some more farms, more acreage, and I think we're around 2,500 acres now farm. We were doing custom harvesting, custom farming, selling our corn silage, barley silage to the dairies that moved in here in the late 1990s, early 2000s. So we went from cotton, chili, alfalfa cubes to corn silage, barley silage, and just really started growing. We had 4 or 5 dairies that we were delivering feed to, and one of them kind of backed out on a contract, a pretty big contract. So we decided that we needed to, when we had a chance, get into the dairy business. So we had a dairy that was needing some help, and he wanted a partner, so we tried to partner up with him, and it kind of fell through, and we ended up buying it in lieu of foreclosure.
Tell me a little bit about the when you took over the dairy, what you had there.
So when we took over, we had about 500 cows making 50 pounds of milk and about a 300 somatic. So from there we've grown to we were at 1,500 cows with a 150 somatic, making, I think we averaged probably 80, 81 pounds. And then last year we bought the dairy adjacent, and now we're at 3,000. Making about the same 80 pounds with a 150 somatic.
So some of the other farmers around here, do they ever ask you, why not just grow feed and sell it and make money? Why be a dairy producer?
Yeah, we've had a couple farmers, but 1 or 2 dairymen ask the same thing. Why would you get in the dairy business? Why wouldn't you just sell the feed? Farming's great right now, but we can remember times, and it's not been that long ago, that farming wasn't the best. I mean, we did okay. Right now the farms is holding the dairy up, but it's not going to be like that forever. We didn't buy a dairy to dairy for 2 years, 3 years, but I've become one of my best customers as well. So we feed probably 45% of the feed that we grow goes to my two dairies. We produce 60, 70,000 tons of corn silage. So right now half of that goes to myself. So I mean that generates a lot of money for us being together. I had a guy tell me one time, you may not hit any home runs owning both, but you'll always be on base. So I think it's safer and a better strategy for our family, because we have so many. We need to be preparing for even my son's generation.
Yeah. You're using a unique micronutrient delivery system as part of your ration. Tell me a little bit about that.
On my first day that I showed up, at the dairy in 2006, we were already looking for, how can we improve, how can we do things better. And we had this old wore out, harsh feed truck. We watched the guy put the mineral in it, and it didn't go anywhere. It just sat right there on the top. All the augers are wore out. Okay, we can get new augers, we can get a new truck, but I didn't like the way that the mineral was being mixed. If it's that important, if those nutrients are that important and that expensive, we need to find a better way to get them to the cow. So I upgraded, my feed truck, and I got a feed watch program, but I also wanted something that we could manage the the small vitamins and minerals and stuff that we're put into the cows. When the tractor backs into the loading spot, it tells the microbatcher, this is how many cows are in this load, and this is how many of what we need to put in. It's automatically mixed and pumped into the tractor so that the driver doesn't have to do anything. And so eliminating human error on a product that's that important was something that I saw that we needed to do.
One of the other things you've talked about from the cropping side of your business, you've talked a little bit about how you are measuring soil moistures and automating the irrigation.
In the past 4 or 5 years, this automated stuff has come available on our pivots where you can control all of our center pivots via satellite or by phone. So you can turn them on, off, speed them up, slow them down. This last spring we put 4 probes in 4 different fields that measures the moisture content in 4 feet of your soil. So it tells you when you need to water, how often you need to water. We've been farming, my dad's been farming since he was 18. I've been doing it since I was 17, 18 years old. So you're like, oh, I know. And we do, but this tool has helped us. We did better this year with that tool. As much crop on less water than we ever had. We always, you need to put this much water on. This is what we've always done. So just because we've always done it didn't mean it was always the best way. So then when this tool came available, we tried it, and we'll definitely move forward with that technology.
Tell me, you've described some of your management practices as kind of out of the box, or because you come from a farming background as opposed to a dairy background specifically. You kind of look at the dairy industry a little bit differently, or maybe aren't stuck in a rut sometimes.
I didn't do everything that everybody said, hey, you should try this or you should do that. But if I looked at something, and one was scraping the corrals daily, but leaving some manure in the pen so the cows could lay on it. I lost a manager over that because he's like, no, to get low somatics, you got to scrape the pen down in the dirt. You don't want any manure left in the pen. So it was me going out myself, scraping it myself, trying it, and giving the cows a soft place to lay, which produced a better environment. They made more milk. They were more comfortable, and that came from reading in the magazines about cow comfort and free stalls. There's not any free stalls here. But if there's that much money and investment in making the cow comfortable in a free stall, then she should be comfortable in an open lot setting too. So it made sense. We tried it. I liked it. My manager said no, and ended up leaving over something as simple as that. We get hot here in the summer, so part of our deal is the cows get hot and they go under the shade and they don't eat. And so I thought, well, how do we fix that? So I had some cheap metal and cheap pipe, and so I put some shades up over the feed lanes. And so one day I had them up on half of the dairy, and the pens that had the shades over the feed, 65-70% of the cows are eating. The pen right next to them had 2 cows eating. So I thought, you know what, I better put shades up on the rest of it. So I'm still working on that, but I've got most of the dairy with shades over the feed lanes.
So you're also using some other unique technologies here. Tell me about those.
We were satisfied with the 72 pounds and the kind of what was going on, about a year after we took over. But with what we've already kind of discussed about the feed watch, the micro batcher, Mark Castleberry, the nutritionist, and the shades and all these things put together. We were gonna have a party when we hit 80 pounds. I told my guy, man, we're gonna hit 80 pounds. We're gonna have a party. We not only hit 80 pounds, but we passed it, so quickly it almost became a standard. And so then if I'm below 80 pounds, I'm like, hey man, what's going on? So about the time that we did all those things, I hooked up with a guy, Ag Ventures, is Dana Heacox, and he approached me with this idea of disinfecting water, using water and ozone gas to disinfect drop hoses, footbaths, floors. And I told him, no, that's an awful idea, But he kind of hung around, and we talked more and more. And some of the other things that I tried worked, and I had some things that I tried that didn't work. But he convinced me, hey, let's try it out. And a month into the trial, my somatic had dropped 40,000. I was eliminating copper sulfate. And so I'm like, yeah, this stuff's really, really working. I was a skeptic at first, but it's working. So I put the machine, on the place, and it's been there ever since. A lot of different applications, not just drop hoses, not just foot bath, but we're using it in our wash pens as a pre-spray. So I was able to eliminate pre-spray iodine, and we're using it. We're injecting it into olive oil and using that as an emollient on the teat condition and stuff. Washing my towels with it. Still got it in the foot bath, and eliminating the copper sulfate. But I've got a rolling somatic cell count at one of the barns. Last year was 135, and the other barn's about 145.
Tell me a little bit about how the ozone system works.
Ozone is a very old technology, ironically. Since the very beginning it's been created with lightning, but it's been harnessed since in Europe in the early 1900s to disinfect potable water, kill and remove all bacteria. And ozone actually kills bacteria far better than chlorine and peroxide and iodine. It's a much more efficient biocide. So we brought that in. We did some tests in the foot baths and drop hoses, and we've since expanded to wash pens, pre-spray, and a number of other applications.
Dana knew how to make the ozone, and I just helped him try to make a way that we can make a machine that is durable and can last and in the dairy environment, which was one of the most harsh environments around. But some of the things that Dana was missing I could see, and some of the things that I couldn't see, Dana could see.
That we use for wiping the teats, because we discovered that it takes about 5 minutes for a towel sitting in the pit to colonize with bacteria and become actually an inoculant instead of a cleaner. So we found out that if we tumble the towels in gas, you've got about 40 minutes protection, and they blow through a bucket of barrels in 20 minutes. So all of a sudden, everything's more sterile. I mean, we spent the first year just doing a bio audit of the dairy. Where's the bacteria? Can we kill it with ozone? Can we kill it with something else? How do we kill it? Where do we get it? Are we worried about the bacteria that's in this corner, or on that floor space, or on this towel? And we started triaging and prioritizing. Where do we need to get this stuff? And is there a direct correlation to the somatic counts? And almost always there has been. So the more bacteria we kill, all other things equal, the lower the somatic cell count that we have.
When you go to talk to somebody about it, and you tell them, well, it can disinfect the floor, it can, disinfect the teeth. We're like, wow, that sounds like magic dust. What can't it do? But any tool used properly will work. But you can't just put the machine on your place, plug it in, and let your guys, use it. I think it's going to take.
You can't not manage your dairy just by virtue of having anything. Whether it's the greatest chemical or antibiotic.
Well, it'd be the same thing as if you got one of pre-spray iodine gun and it breaks, and the guys don't tell you, and so now you're not pre-dipping your cows now because they didn't it's a machine, and so it takes a little bit of management to make sure the machine's running. And I don't want to put it out there that this thing is you just plug it in, walk away, and you're going to have the same somatic that I have, because I think we've kind of explained a couple other ways that we've dropped somatic, or so it's not just a plug it in and
it's a tool that can be integrated into a good system.